Welcome to Creators X, our series with Vultr, looking at the humans behind the tech. Super excited to have yet another guest from Nokia with us, Clayton. We're going to kick it off by diving right in and talking about scuba diving.
Scuba diving. We're going to dive right in.
We are going to dive right in.
I love scuba diving. So as I was just saying, I'm from South Florida. The water makes everything better. When I was young, it's interesting, when I was young, growing up in Florida, we didn't have this idea of scuba certifications. They were out there, but you know, water's kind of shallow. You just grab your friend's stuff, you go, you hang out a little bit. And then as I approached my 50th birthday, I was very close to getting all 50 states. And so I made this, I said, I'm going to go see every single one of the United States. What a great thing to do here in the US. And the last state was going to be Hawaii. And I really wanted to go scuba dive in Hawaii. And they asked for that certification card. So I actually got my certification at like age 48 in order to set up this whole Hawaii thing, even though I had been scuba diving for a long time. Don't do it at home. You're supposed to have certification. It's very important. Yeah, so it ended up being great. It was just a magical 50th birthday and 30th anniversary kind of thing. And I've had the luxury of, because I do so much international work, the luxury of scuba diving in some pretty interesting places. So it's been great. And I hope you will be able to find me somewhere around Key Largo when I retire. Not too long from now, I'll be running a dive shop, I hope. That's my next era.
He'll be running a bootleg under the table dive shop.
No paddy cards needed. No. They didn't do that.
That's actually an outstanding story. Why do you think that scuba diving is really important for you as an innovator and a creator?
You know, as we're sitting here, you asked that question, and it kind of it came to mind. It's a hobby which, when I get down under the water, it's kind of mission oriented. You know, you're maybe going to see a wall with some interesting fish that are there, or you're going to see a wreck or something like that. So, and it's obviously very technical. You have to understand the pressures and you have to understand how things are set up, because there's very high stakes when you're that far under the water if something happens. And so for me, it's this interesting combination of a technical hobby, something that requires me to exercise those parts of my brain in a completely different way than work, right? It's not about connections and communication and internetworking and all of those things. It's something very different. It feels very tactile because you're doing something and you're going, instead of sitting in front of a laptop. But then once you get under the water and you start on your mission, everything else floats away. And it's just a great feeling to be able to have every other neuron in your brain kind of focused on this endeavor of being underwater and diving, rather than the monkey brain that I think a lot of us probably have with this industry that's just, moving at absolute warp speed.
Well, it can be very all-consuming in the wrong way. You talk about the ocean being very all-consuming of the senses, I think, in a very good way, in a very profound way, the way you just described it. And I think right now it's very easy to feel like we're swimming in a sea without a sextant when it comes to tools and what to build next. How do you help people navigate their AI journey onshore?
Well, I get this question quite a bit, because as we within Nokia, as we build up our practice, as we scale up, as we sell more things, as we engage more customers, more people need to be involved with that, and they look to me as the leader of the group to, how do I get on board? How do I become productive? I just want to start running, right? Point me in a direction and tell me how to run. And so certainly one of the things that I do quite a bit is you have to be curious. You have to activate the curious part of your brain. You have to go and do some research yourself, whether it's on social media. X is a fantastic place to find. If you dial in your experience on X, you can really find some really good, thoughtful research being done and track that. You have to come to events like this. You have to be part of the ecosystem. It's very important, because unlike networking from the last many decades, where we sort of worked everything out in the open, we agreed among vendors and suppliers and customers that we're going to have this protocol, we're going to have this way to build a system. We're moving at light speed here, literally, right?
Yeah.
You have Microsoft that's working things out differently than OpenAI is. It's working things out differently from Vultr is. And so all of these people are really having to invent. They're having to stay curious and ingest a lot of information. And technology is changing very fast, too.
Yes, it is.
As fast as the fish underwater, because you can be in a school of fish one minute, and then the next minute there's nothing around you, because that's the way it is. That's what underwater life is like. Not too different here. Things are moving at such a pace that really being curious is the number one thing that you're going to have in order to get involved.
I feel like the curious amongst us are are getting rewarded in a way. You used to, at least I'll speak for myself, I used to get in trouble for speaking up too much in class or pushing things too far.
Yeah.
Now, there's a little bit of a treat at the end of the tunnel for
That's
that.
right. That's right. You just have to balance it against the FOMO, because you can absolutely get down a rat hole where it's 2:30 in the morning. You're like, no, just one more Twitter thread. Like this guy's working on a new compression algorithm. I got to follow along. But it is. It's fantastic for people that have been lifelong learners. My parents are both public educators, and so they gave that to me, right? This idea of lifelong learning. So if you have that and you can put it to practice, and you love communications, if you love networks, that's the kind of, come on and talk to me at Nokia, because we need some help. So it really is. It's phenomenal. I'm in the last chapter of my career. Obviously I've been around a little while, and I've been through dial-up and DSL and 4G and 5G and streaming media and all of these things. And it's incredible in the last act of my career to have what has been the biggest thing for networking in my career. It's unbelievable.
It's a bit of a renaissance, I feel like, for the old telco fam that's been through the ringer on some of the ride here.
They have. Telcos certainly will, they'll try to figure out where their place is. I mean, the thing about that, and of course it's a wonderful market for Nokia. We have done incredibly thoughtfully engineered products for that market for a very long period of time, and most of the planet has some amount of Nokia infrastructure, if not, a significant amount of Nokia infrastructure. But the world is definitely different now. Telcos have that geography. They have this critical asset, which is customer relationships. Then you have the cloud operators that are really good at providing scale, but maybe are not great at that individual, the relationship selling, getting it. So it's going to be interesting to see these worlds evolve over the next 2 or 3 years. And I think that the pie is growing so quickly. Everyone has a place. Everyone can be successful if they discipline themselves.
Well, therein lies the challenge of many great successes out there in the world.
Well, it's almost happy hour, so we can get started right now.
No, I can hear it. You wanted to be a conductor.
I did.
Before computers came into your life.
I did. Yeah, I grew up only child, as I said. My parents were educators, and they were first generation college students, and so they really tried to provide a life for their one son, their one child. And as part of that, like anyone, you get thrown into piano lessons, and I took to it. I really enjoyed music. I really enjoyed playing piano, and enjoyed classical music, which is very unusual for a young kid, but I loved it. And so was headed towards that. And then I guess about 79, to date myself, 1979, I was very young. My dad brings home from work an Apple II and the books alongside of it. No internet, no modem, no nothing. This is me and the computer at the kitchen table. And
just you and the hardware locked in. I can see it.
It was absolutely real. And started doing some programming, and this whole world just opened up to me. It's like Technicolor, that I could make this thing do what I wanted, and I could program it, and it was my domain to control, And so while music stayed in my life, for sure, I ended up going towards the technology route, which is great. I have 3 sons. They're all in the performing arts in some way, so I've given that to them, and that's been a real joy. I have a musician. I have a conductor, so my oldest is a conductor.
You passed it on. You passed the baton.
And I didn't tell him until after he had his master's degree. So he didn't know that this was actually his mother told him.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't want it to overshadow him. I wanted him to organically find it, and somehow he found it, so it's been great.
How excited were you to tell him when you finally did?
Well, his mom told him at a dinner table that I didn't know what was going to be said, and he sort of shot a look at me. Was like, you never told me, 19, 20-year-old, you never told me that. Well, I think I did a good job then. I think that you found this, and this is his thing. Loves it. He's a music teacher in Virginia right now, teaching little kids, and then he'll head off to his sort of advanced studies sooner or later. And then I have a cinematographer, and I have a kid who works in the movies, on movie sets. So I've given that arts to them. And by the way, this is a hallmark of what I find with some of the most pleasant people I've worked with, colleagues, is that they have some sort of artistic background. They're a maker in some way. Now you can see the rise of 3D printing and all of these things. So there's outlets. But early in the day, you found these people who were also musicians, and they were also doing these other artistic endeavors. They were painting. And that's because I think that you see pattern matching, you see organization, you see hierarchy, and all of these things are very applicable to what we do in our professional lives as well.
And I think, to just build on that, as a maker, you see what doesn't exist yet.
That's right.
And I think that's the gift of all creatives.
Yeah.
You see the potential. You see the potential notes on that score, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's right. I have been called before a fog sculptor. So that's
Ooh.
so at the
That's
the
a
edge,
first on the
well,
show.
No, I know.
Here you have it, folks.
more,
Our
but-
first fox, our
Frog
first fox
sculptor.
sculptor. We're gonna eat the mic as a result. I'm so surprised. Sorry about that.
Sculpting fog is kind of what you're saying, which is that ambiguity that's out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not rain yet, it's not a flood, it's this amorphous thing. How do we bring this and make it something real? And against the backdrop of technologies changing, the scale. That's
Yeah.
what really the big thing is here. People are buying so much that the scale is changing every 9 to 12 months as opposed to every 3 to 4 years. And so you have to have that insight. You have to have the ability, not just insight, but the network, the signal collection, talk about Twitter and all that. You have to have that. And that's why curiosity matters. Because otherwise you're going to run out of gas real quick.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to get there.
What is the conversation like at the dinner table with your very creative sons?
It's, well, first of all, my wife was also an only child. So the whole sibling dynamic is unknown to us. You know,
Oh my goodness, but you're navigating it together.
Yeah,
Shout
now
out
we
to
get
the
to see
family.
it together,
Hello.
right? You get to see them, two boys fight viscerally, and you pick one side and peel them off one another, and the other one starts crying that, you know, you're hurting my brother. Well, I took your side. What am I doing wrong here? But it's very interesting. Having artists, they think advanced, let's say, specifically about the impact of AI on the arts. You know, we talk about this. I was just talking to my middle son, who's he's a cowboy with a camera. He lives in Wyoming, and he basically does guest ranches and cattle drives, and he documents all that, does documentaries for that.
Cool.
Just had a huge conversation with him on Sunday about how does he diffuse his footprint enough to provide income, but still have that art outlet, right? What are the things that he needs to be doing? Are they artistic related? Is he going to have to do something that's not? The conversation that we have around AI and the arts and job replacement and some of these very touchy subjects
Extremely.
is the idea that there's going to be no lack of content. There will be plenty of content, as much slop as you want to consume, right? So then does human content end up having a premium? You know, is it like, well, you can go to
I
Walmart.
really hope so.
Well, I do too. I think the human experience is what we should be accentuating with AI and not removing it, right? I think
Agreed.
it's critically important. When you have interactions like this, you meet a friend, right?
Yeah.
Now you and I will see one another down the road. They're like, oh, we had to get, you know, like this is what life is all about, you know. And I don't want to run to the end of it and not have these sort of interactions. So
It is.
I'm hoping that human premium will really be valued, right? But
Yes.
it's a conversation we have all the time. And my kids they're all very bright, and they outthink me in some of these things too, because I'm not a professional artist and they are, so they get it more than I do. So.
Well, I think anyone can outthink anyone right now because we're truly in uncharted territory.
Yes.
I think when it comes to certain things, right? I mean, outside of technical details, man, I mean, anyone's brain is just as good as the next. And, you know, to your exact point, if these were our two AIs or our two agents interacting right now, first of all, it would be nowhere near as fun.
Right.
And,
That's right.
and there wouldn't be the ability for the human aspect of play. I don't care how much you train a model on something. The things that make us most beautifully quirky and unique as human beings are not going to be replaced.
Yeah,
by all of
I
this.
completely agree. Like Forrest Gump. Why'd you do it? Well, for no particular reason.
Yes. All right. Couple flash round questions.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
If Vultr was a genre of music, what genre of music would they be?
Oh, it would have to be punk rock covers,
Ooh. Okay. Tell me why.
because I think punk rock covers are totally hilarious. I think that just hearing any song as a punk rock cover completely changes your interpretation of the song. Like I have heard lyrics I've never heard before, and not because they were particularly bad, but just when you have someone covered in such a drastic genre.
Yes.
I think to me Vultr's like that. They're doing something that's so interesting, and so you can't help but pay attention to it. Right, we love working with them because the pace. I mean, look, we were talking just a little bit ago. 8 weeks ago, nobody knew what a claw was, what a open claw, what a Nemo claw, this kind of stuff. And these guys have already refactored. You can build your own little personal agent right here. You can some physical knobs. You can tune it. You can crank it out. Like you have to pay attention to that. That's why we like working with these folks, because they're thinking not only what can I do that's going to serve the market. There's a lot of people here doing that. What can I do that's unique and strategic and that gives me a unique place in the universe. So love working with these folks.
I love that. And what genre of music would Nokia be?
Probably a classical symphony. I mean, look, we're a 100-year-old company, so there's only so much you can do.
But that's great. Where do we think everyone learned? Those punk rockers studied classical music.
That's exactly right. And you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with a great symphonic performance. It requires many, many hundreds of people to be all on the same page, to have that conductor, to bring them to be expressive. People think that, the conductor stands up there and just waves his arms and they know how to play, but they're forgetting that there was many, many weeks or months of rehearsals before that where they're dialing in how the inflection that you're going to use on this note, and I want you to be a little quieter here. And so all that background work is very important. So to me, Nokia is very much like that, where our superpower is we're huge. We can transact anywhere on the planet. We do very complex
full
things
symphony.
very well. We do. We
Yeah.
can handle any procurement scenario. We can ship things. We can have them landed in Uzbekistan. That doesn't always comport with speed, but the good thing is I've been back to the company for about 3 years now. Is we are moving as fast as we ever have been, and we are really finding a tremendous amount of success. So we must be doing something right.
Yes, well, I can say as an analyst and someone watching from the outside, y'all are definitely shining right now, and it's great to see that velocity in a household beloved brand for many years.
Well,
so I love to see
we
it.
appreciate the feedback.
Okay, last question for you. Where's the next scuba diving destination?
Well, our customer event is at Palma, Mallorca. It's coming up in May, I believe.
Isn't that wonderfully
Late
planned?
May, that's right. So I'm going to be taking my gear with me to our customer event in Palma, Mallorca, and my
Amazing.
wife is joining me, and I'm hopeful to find some really cool dive spots over there. It's a part of the world. I've dived in Italy before. I've never dived over in the western part of the Med, so I'm pretty excited about that. And the
Wow.
weather and the weather and the water should be beautiful.
I am a bit jealous, and I look forward to seeing some photos and living vicariously for you. Thank you for diving in with us today, Clayton. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Appreciate the invitation. It's been great being with you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you're all having as much fun as we are here under the sea with Vultr's Creators X Series. My name is Savannah Peterson. Thanks for coming to learn with us.